What if I told you that a tax cut you were promised just vanished overnight? That instead of seeing more money in your pocket, you're now watching new deductions quietly chip away at your Social Security benefits? And that this wasn't an accident, but a calculated shift buried under layers of official language? This isn't fear-mongering. This is happening right now. And most Americans haven't even noticed. Because while the headlines talk about growth, recovery, and economic strength, something entirely different is happening beneath the surface. If you're retired, planning to retire, or supporting someone who relies on Social Security, this surprise change might affect you more than you think. So let's unravel it. What's been quietly introduced in place of promised tax cuts could completely change how you see retirement. For months, leaders promised relief, bold tax cuts, especially for retirees and middle-income families. It was supposed to ease the burden and boost spending. For many living on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, that promise felt like a lifeline. But then, something shifted. No big announcement, no breaking news, just a quiet change, tucked inside legislative updates, buried in budget revisions, and slipped into the Social Security Administration's deduction rules. The tax cut, no longer front and center. Instead, it's been replaced by something called targeted benefit adjustments. A harmless-sounding phrase that could mean smaller monthly checks for millions. Here's what's really happening. To cover shortfalls in the Social Security Trust Fund, new deductions are being phased in. These aren't voted on in big public hearings. They're tied to cost of living increases and Medicare adjustments. In simple terms, as your benefits rise to match inflation, the government takes part of that increase back. So, while your check might look slightly higher, new deductions can cancel it out or leave you with less than before, especially if you're enrolled in Medicare Part B or D. This shift came just as inflation spiked, triggering higher COLA increases, which created an unexpected burden on federal budgets. To handle it, officials introduced a cost-sharing system. That includes terms like tiered Medicare deduction scaling and supplemental offset programs. Translation? Your benefits could now face new deductions based on inflation trends, not just income. So if your COLA increase was $70, you might only keep $30. And the rest? Gone, quietly. Most people won't even notice because the check still comes. But compare it to last year's, and the difference becomes clear. Now, some lawmakers argue this is necessary. They say it's the responsible thing to do to ensure long-term solvency for programs like Social Security and Medicare. And to be fair, there is some truth to that. The trust funds are under pressure. By 2034, without adjustments, benefits could face automatic reductions. But here's the question. Why replace a widely supported tax cut with hidden deductions instead of making these discussions public and transparent? Why bury the change in technical documents instead of explaining it plainly to the millions it affects? For many retirees, transparency matters because it's not just about money, it's about trust. They spent decades paying into the system. They were told their benefits were guaranteed. And now, without a clear debate, those benefits are being quietly reduced. Let's look at a real-world example. Take Margaret, a 74-year-old widow living in Ohio. Her Social Security benefit this year increased by $92 due to the COLA adjustment. But when she checked her deposit last month, it was actually $6 lower than last year. Why? Because her Medicare Part B premium also increased, as expected. But a new deduction category labeled Benefit Alignment Offset appeared on her statement. That offset was $50. When she called to ask about it, she was told it was part of federal benefit recalibration due to inflation indexing. She hung up, confused and frustrated. Margaret isn't alone. Across the country, seniors are reporting similar discrepancies. And the explanations? Vague at best. The real concern isn't just about the money, it's about the method. The tax cut promise, the idea that government would give back, has now flipped into something far more subtle, taking differently. And when deductions rise quietly, and benefits shrink without warning, it creates a dangerous precedent. Because next year, more of the same could happen, without debate, without consent, and without any clear answer to one important question. Who's really making these decisions? According to internal reports from the Congressional Budget Office, the deduction policies were recommended by a bipartisan fiscal panel. But those recommendations were not passed through traditional legislative votes. They were enacted through administrative adjustments, a tool that allows agencies to implement minor changes without a full congressional process. Only these weren't minor for the people affected. For someone living on $400 a month, losing $60 to new deductions isn't small. It's groceries, it's medication, it's stability. So what happens now? For many, the change is already happening. They'll notice the difference in their July or August statements, if they're paying close attention. And unless the public pushes back, these quiet deductions could soon become the new normal. As for the promised tax relief, it's been shelved. Maybe it'll return. But no one knows when or what it will even look like. What's most alarming is how invisible all of this is. Search for Social Security deduction changes, and you'll find little more than dense PDFs and vague notices. No headlines, no debates, just silence. And silence is dangerous, because what begins as a small deduction can quietly grow. Today, it's Medicare offsets. Tomorrow, inflation surcharges, wellness penalties, new formulas, all under the banner of sustainability. All without most Americans realizing what's been taken. So what can you do? First, read your statements closely. Every month, compare them to last year, know exactly what's being taken and why. Then, ask questions, real questions, and demand real answers. Call, email, speak up. And finally, share this. Because once deductions become routine, they rarely go away. They expand. What we were promised was relief. What we're getting is reduction. Not by vote, not by law, but through slow, silent erosion. Don't let that continue. Stay informed, stay loud, and stay ready to act. Because your retirement, your benefits, your future should never be reduced in silence. If this video helped you, share it. And if you want real updates, not headlines, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll keep watching, so you don't have to do it alone. Thanks for being here. Stay sharp. Disclaimer. This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Information is based on public reports and policy updates available at the time of recording. Viewers should consult official sources or a licensed advisor for personalized guidance.